Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, my conversation with Dave Severson. This past summer, my son Toby and I were not able to take our grand road trip like we typically do out west or maybe out east because of the kidney stone issue that I had to deal with when I was over in Scotland. So instead, we went back up north in Minnesota, one of our favorite places to be, Duluth and northward, the Superior Hiking Trail, one of our absolute favorite places to take hikes. Now, on our way, we did take a pit stop so I could see one of the most amazing gardens in Minnesota. So he's a Minnesota Bonsai Society member. His name is Dave Severson, and he often lets a lot of people go through his garden up in the Duluth area once they discover that he's there. I had a chance to spend 2-3 hours up there with Toby, and we had a blast. And he has some very, very amazing bonsai trees, and just to be in his garden is something else. So we start with the basic, how did he get started, and then he talks about the uniqueness of bonsai. Dave Severson. How did bonsai get started with you?
The fella Jack that I spoke about earlier, and with his appreciation and in an emotional context. I went to the state fair about 25 years ago. It happened to be Labor Day weekend, so Friday, Saturday, I didn't notice it. I happened on it.
Yeah.
Walked into the horticulture building, kind of just meandering, and saw bonsai. I remember walking in and being so awestruck that I literally went down one wing of the pie, had to walk back out and sit. And because I just had to quiet myself, and then went back in. And there was that experience was for a northern Minnesota kid, though I had done some landscaping with a big mugle in my house, seeing those trees, then taking the course at Como, living in an apartment at the time.
Oh boy.
I killed that tree. I'm sure that, and I when I talk with people about bonsai, and they do just what you did, is they giggle when they get a sense of relief that I've killed trees.
Right.
After looking at these
when
trees.
you walk through this garden.
Yeah, I've killed trees. Yeah, it's part of the terrain. Again, because I live in Duluth, so far from the hub of the culture, and prior to YouTube, which is part of what you're doing, which makes the learning curve much smoother when I can go back and go, what did they just do? What did they just say?
Yeah, right.
I was looking at books and practicing. So that's how I got started. Part of the uniqueness of trees needs to be separated, not just on a bench, just parked next to each other. And I retired about 15 years ago, and that gave me much more time then to be able to begin to wander and wonder.
Absolutely. I like that. I like that concept or that thought process of really having a space to showcase as much as possible each of your trees.
These trees literally became my balm of healing, or an opportunity to just relax. And so I would, before I'd go to work in the morning, I would literally come out and mist. I'll mist before I actually water, and just wander. And I remember there was always like a 40. I had to do it a little bit faster than I do now, but there's the 45 minutes where I would take a breath and go, okay, switch gears, go to work.
Yeah.
But even at work, I had some bonsai indoor tropical stuff around my desk.
Yeah.
I had a chair just about where you're sitting, next to mine. And so these trees are all around, and people, I'd be working away, and I'd look up, and somebody said, never mind, I'm just going to be by the trees. These trees evoke feeling. Do they have feeling? I don't know. But what they do is there's a resonance when people come into the backyard that it is not unique. That as if I get out of my own way with just kind of telling stories, or when it's gotten quiet enough and I've noticed emotion in somebody, tearing up, quiet pauses, right in the presence, and that part of it is having the trees as high at this kind of level. Yeah. As I might say something like, something just happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know it before anything's ever said.
Yes. Yeah. And even like with Jack, when he stood here and looked at the Phoenix graft, and he said to me, this happens to me when I go into a museum, and for me it's called sensory overload.
Absolutely.
And so as he spoke about that, I reached out and put my hand on his shoulder, and I got to compose myself because I'm on camera, but it overloads me in a wonderful way.
Yeah, for sure.
So that eliciting, and I think this is the part, because I'm just fascinated about emotions. This is the part for me. It's so much of the trees and their beauty, their uniqueness. I can get in the way of who they are, and depending upon if I have a good day and I can just let them strut their stuff to someone instead of me feeling like, well, you need to notice me also.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that they facilitate that is unique.
What an exceptional man, and some exceptional trees. I had such a great time taking a chunk out of my road trip with Toby to hang around a man who really has cared for some amazing bonsai trees and some great stories to tell. And that's one of the things we talked about. A lot of times in our world, we're just a little crazy go, go, go. And I've talked about this with my principal at my school this year. I talked about it in front of the entire school as we had our back to school workshop. And that's the idea, well, we used to call it stop and smell the roses. But the word pause has come up a lot in the last year for me. And I talked about it with Dave. Sometimes to just pause and soak it in. Depends on where you are, what you're doing, and what you have the chance to see or witness or be with the person. But his garden, what a great place to just take a pause. To be in anybody's collection that just makes you pause and just go like, and how beautiful, how quiet, how therapeutic. I mean, the Japanese have Hanoki walks. You know, there's a book out there called Nature Fix that I recently read, and they're talking, this woman went around and studied nature healing.
And I ask in those moments of pause, after that pause has elapsed long enough, I said, you've just seen, can you tell me what just happened?
Yeah, share.
Yeah. And to be curious with someone, and these set the stage with curiosity. To be openly curious is an invitation to that person's uniqueness of that they may not even, and if they stumble wonderfully, because it's just slightly outside of just to smile and go, me too.
Yeah.
That still happens 25 years
Sure.
later.
That's us. That's
So,
good to hear. That's
yeah.
good to hear. That's awesome. When I talk to people about bonsai in their neck of the woods or their microclimate, well, that's what I talk about. That ever important microclimate. What I have here in my yard is different than what Dave has up in his yard, and even the guy just around the corner from me. Our microclimates are different. Up in Duluth, we would think it's cold and frigid, and it is. And his trees are in the cold frame for an awfully long time in a very short growing season. But there's some benefits to being up in the Duluth area. And he talks about regulated temperature, the amazing water quality next to that wonderful Lake Superior. And then he also talks about the importance, perhaps, of having native species. So let's go back and talk to Dave about those things.
Winter, summer, it modifies.
Yeah.
If you ever look at systems that are coming in on the weather, you'll notice how these very aggressive, pronounced weather systems come in, and they hit the pressure of Lake Superior, what it does uniquely with its coldness, and that's it'll skirt Duluth.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, we don't get the hail. Very seldom we get hail.
Mm-hmm.
The winds, we may get some gusts, but with the fence for both wind protection in the spring,
Yep.
and then also for keeping the deer away. Coming back to the microclimate, got a lot of trees that really, again, buffer the intensity of the sun. So it's, and like earlier today, about 2 hours ago, I got out of the car and I thought, I was getting a little gentle breeze off Lake Superior, and it can be in the 70s. Dave Crust was in the 90s in Brainerd this week, and it was 75 here.
Mm-hmm.
So the moderating effect of the microclimate. It's been Minnesota being in a drought. Thank you, Lake Superior pH. My water, I just draw it right off the tap. Don't have to do any modifying. Nice. And Dave Crest has tested it and said, we got perfect water here.
Wow.
And I think part of what's helpful is then honoring with native species. Mm-hmm. How can they, how much adapting do they have to have? So my favorite being tamarack, the hardiness of them with their significantly genetically steeled enough so that they can live in a ditch or in a swamp, and I can collect and then bring them here and then transition them from the wild, and then the storage just being under a blanket of snow. Mm-hmm. Out of the sun, out of the wind, the dehydration stuff. Mm-hmm. And then the only problem is in the spring having to wait to pry them off of the frozen soil.
Yeah. Now, we didn't talk too deeply into the seasons for Dave, and in fact, I don't even think we talked about winter except for the cold frames that he used. But we talk a little bit about spring, summer, and fall, and what Dave does to keep him sane, if not incredibly busy, with his bonsai. The spring equinox rolls around. You're in Duluth. You've got a huge garden here, so what's your approach in the spring, and how do you maintain this kind of success? Now, you have a lot of trees and the beginners have one, but you know, what are some guidelines that keep you sane in spring?
Hot coffee when I'm out here and there's a wind off the lake, and now they've got wonderful gloves but my hands used to be them.
Yeah.
get them while I work.
A tree.
Yeah. Spring can be exhausting. The days are long, and there's just a window of opportunity where they're waking up and to get them. So I need to get some things ready, make dirt, make my soil, get those things ready for spring, and then okay.
Let's get to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you blink on some trees, you lost it. You have to wait till later in the year or next spring, or you're done, right? I mean, when you have this many trees.
Yeah, and then to remember, well, it's root bound, so periodically to literally soak the root system.
Yes.
And work with it, but then like we pressed on the roots of that one tamarack.
Yeah.
It should have been done this spring, but I'll give it some TLC now. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine for another year. You have more refined trees than I do. So, what's your fertilizer regimen in the spring? Do you fertilize many of your trees in the spring, or are you holding back on some of them? What's the fertilizer world for you?
The ponderosa pines and the tamaracks, they won't get fertilizer until their needles have hardened out. Okay. So I'll start that in a few weeks, and just push into the fall to give them that. But to do that too soon is to create a lot of lush growth, and I don't want length, and I don't want this pushing of either the foliage or the branch structures,
right,
which is the stimulate of the fertilizer. I primarily make tea for my fertilizing, and it's an organic, and do that every 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. I'm still working on the details of that, because of the porosity of the soil, it can flush away quickly.
Much quicker,
yeah. What do I want? Can I be content with the future design where branches sacrifice branch? How much do I want things to bulk up? Because as you know, once they're in a pot, that starts restricting what they can do. When Nick Lentz talked about, when I read in his book, talked about putting this tamarack in the ground for 7 years.
Yeah.
And then planting some carpenter ants on it to give it character. I thought, well, that's interesting.
There you go.
But
technique.
The proof in the product was, as he showed the history of it, was that when something's in the ground, it goes,
yeah,
and that gives possibility for future
character in the tree.
Yeah.
Age.
So learning, being able to live with, procrastination can be, gives a bad rap. It's not all bad. Helpful.
Not all bad. Yeah, this is a year, because of my lifestyle this year and my busy spring and early summer busyness, a lot of trees I didn't mess with this year. And I think it's been good. My trees are just like, just let me grow this year. There's nothing wrong with that. And I might have missed an opportunity here or there for a certain branch or thing, but I think it's been good. We are at the last day of July, so when we hit summer, are you just maintaining in summer and trying to keep things from growing too crazy, or what are you doing in summer with your bonsai collection here?
When you use the word maintain, a lot of it is, as things have settled, it's almost like jets when they take off, the amount of energy and fuel that then they get up to
their cruise level.
Yeah, and that's just like, that's the stage I'm in right now during the summer. Feeding, watering, really hot days watering maybe twice.
Yeah.
especially if some of my art is in full sun, and being aware that the dehydration or the dark spots. So summertime is kind of a cruising speed for me, and with more attention given as word has gotten out in Duluth that there are bonsai trees in Duluth and you could come and visit.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of it's been 2-3 times a week that somebody has gotten hold of me and said, could we see your garden? Would that be okay?
Wow.
And so that is that phrase, fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
That's to share this awe with other people. That's what this time is right now. That they will respond, and it's important to have it well established.
Okay.
It be a healthy tree. Then to literally go in and take off, hand pluck the needles, and tamaracks have a, and it's beautiful in the morning when I mist, especially, that this cluster of a needle, a single branch, will collect
that drop of water.
Yeah, and the sun coming right over and it hits those, and it's this profusion of diamonds on the tree.
Yeah.
But to take those off individually without, you can't grasp a whole cluster. You'll literally break it off. So it's very tedious.
Very tedious job on a larch.
But when they begin to emerge, and the timing with the one that I took to the state fair when I did that was exquisite.
So you plucked July 4th-ish, and by the fair in September, Labor Day weekend, it was beautiful, small foliage and condensed.
Because like you're aware that the part of the conveying of age and the story, a realistic story, is proportion.
Yeah.
So if the foliage is smaller, it almost does something with our head that makes the trunk bigger. It gets everything in proportion.
Yeah.
In proportion.
You might have a tree that looks 30 years old one moment and it might jump to 50 years after that pluck, and that's small.
Yeah.
Just, or even 15 to 20 or 30 years old or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly cut down, though I need to make sure that all the trees have a saturated root ball going into winter before they sleep, that they're adequately hydrated. The falls are pretty laid back. I want to wait until I've had a hard freeze. Something between 25 and 28.
Okay.
They're sitting where they are right now on the benches.
Yeah.
I need to, before I put them away, I need to clean them up, get all the moss and the debris, the dead needles off, so that I don't harbor insects or some kind of infestation of what we were talking about with the mold, setting the stage for the mold.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not nearly the frenzy of spring.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, it is that a different beauty with the color that is very unique and captivating. And so I would like that more people could come and see the trees in the fall during that two-week period where the colors so profoundly unique.
And when is it for you generally? I mean, we have trees that are in pots and we're giving them such TLC. Is it later than the beauty of the North Shore by a week or two, or is it about the same time? When do you see the color here?
And coming back to the microclimate, and because I'm tending these trees, they don't, in drought conditions, that stress will cause trees to change color.
Color change.
Quickly. Yeah. So mine uniformly will happen in first couple weeks in October for the tamaracks.
Okay.
One of the advantages of places that have more temperate climate is they can leave the trees on the pedestals and see the skeleton.
Yeah, for sure.
And all their structure.
Yeah.
And I have a very brief time where that can
benefit you.
Yeah. Right. But it's a quieter time. Get the wheelbarrow set up to start hauling them over to the cold frame and staging them according to height on the different shelves, and begin to just
tuck them away for winter.
Yeah. For years, I was keeping it in the 34 to 38 degree. I would let them freeze, so they went into dormancy, and then put them in the cold frame. And these are only the ones that are not zone hardy.
Right.
But then, talking with Dave Press, part of it was for his storage, very elaborate storage. He's a construction guy, so he had dialed it in 40 years later how to keep them. And he kept his cold storage at the high 20s, and literally would put snow on top of the root canopy, on top of the pot.
Top of the pot.
Yeah. When I kept it, and I don't have any light in my storage area, when I kept it at 34 to 38 consistently in March into April, I would get snow mold. And it just did a job on the junipers. If they got a hit of that, I would lose foliage predictably. Now, that's not the case nearly as much.
It's interesting. Our club in general has been talking about fungus or mold issues the last several years, and I don't know if you know of Carol Novak of the club, but Carol has lost or has some really suffering trees this year, and we're dealing with, again, a fungus or a mold. And my Shimpaku that I had working with Peter Tion in the fundamentals group that I'm with, mine died, and I think it's it's the direction you're talking about. Okay. I think that's what caused it. Whether it's a snow mold or some kind of, so that 35 to 40 degrees all winter long, is it too warm actually and wet and really inviting that stuff?
Yeah. And Crust it's a large room and he has a lot of venting capacity in it, so he can pull air through. Yeah. So that movement, that clarifying of the air and getting things through is helpful also.
So winter is your time to have your life back, the other parts of your life. Is there anything else you do in bonsai during that Duluth frozen period, or is it just going in to get a once in a while?
Dave Crest and I can get together and if I pull a tamarack out rather than storing it and put it in my cold frame,
sure,
we'll go over and style trees at his place
in the wintertime.
Yeah. And that's where, because he has such a huge collection and his trees are so refined, he does a lot of his styling
in the wintertime. Is it only larch you work on during that time with him, or is there other trees you would work on at that time?
I've worked on Japanese garden junipers.
Okay.
And some maples, doing some pruning on maples, setting up the bone structure.
Yeah.
So.
And wiring is a lot of that styling. Do you wire a lot in the wintertime, or is it mainly pruning?
Wiring as well.
As well. Yeah.
Now, perhaps one of my favorite parts of Dave is his calm demeanor and smile when he talks about his trees, and he loves to share what he has developed over the last 25 to 35 years up there in Duluth. And he takes his trees, some of them, one tree here, one tree there, to the local YMCA. And the responses that he gets are truly amazing and just tickles him and warms his heart. Brings a tree to the YMCA, and people will then ask when they're not there, where's the bonsai? How come we don't have a bonsai here today? And people find out about Dave through the YMCA and other areas up in Duluth, and then they get a chance to go to his garden and take a look at those trees, and they're changed forever when they have that experience. I love how Dave shares his passion with the community and makes them all take that pause, a sense of beauty, a sense of stress relief, just that sense of awe and wonder that he described earlier in the show. So we talk about the YMCA and then the importance of maybe joining a club or having that small study group to really enhance your bonsai.
I mentioned that I go to the Y and put them on the counter.
Yeah.
So a lot of those young people and the people working the Y, they go, oh, here comes another tree. Do you know how much people talk about these trees? And it's their energy. I love their energy and their sense of awe. And if you want something and you live in an apartment, tropical, jades are great.
Yeah, they are.
They're heads up, easy, and forgiving.
I love my Portulacaria.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah. And that would be a way to, and because now they're in a pot, just like I carried this in, put it, you can carry it to your new apartment.
Yeah.
And you're really pretty young for this. See this beard? So this is, you gotta kind of be, it's helpful to be, you don't have to be. It's helpful to be retired, to have a place that I live where I can store them. So I give them some of the background that you and I have just talked about.
Yeah.
And I want to, at the same time, feed that wonder, and that appreciation that they're expressing.
Sure.
And also want to let them know that you know your personality. Yeah. And I'm kind of an introverted, laid-back guy. So this suits me. It's my pace.
Yeah.
So if you want it now, it's you can certainly enjoy this, and I'll tell them I really appreciate it. Tell me what you're seeing in this tree. It's all engaged.
Yeah.
But I want to be gentle about helping them to realize it. And then I also tell them, and you know what? I've killed a few trees myself. So letting them know that it's
some will die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
So I don't want to discourage, but I want to be realistic with people. So that's the part that really promoting Ficus benjaminus, the small leaf stuff, and the jades. Do that, and they're available.
We've talked a lot about this today too, and I think this can be very crucial for a couple of reasons personally in the success of bonsai. But I want your take on being involved in a club and or what you've talked about, this study group that you've had the pleasure and the amazing opportunity to be with some pretty amazing people. Some from the club, some not from the club. So the perks of being, why would someone join a club, and finding maybe that study group niche of people that you get along with. Speak to those two things as we wrap up today.
The value of sharing this new venture with another because we're social critters.
Yeah.
The value is learning, to me, learning in community and finding a resonance with somebody else who is already also just starting and kind of going, I don't know what I'm doing, but you neither, so should we, how can we get excited together? It's like going on a canoe trip with some good friends.
Yeah.
That there's a community starts developing.
Yeah.
It's also somebody, just like what you expressed this morning, that this person's coming over and watering the trees.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who comes and waters my trees. So because these are living, the value of spreading this is very practically speaking. There's some value in. And then on a Saturday afternoon saying, hey, can we get together and work on a tree together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that generative social piece of having in common passion pursuits, learning curve, and then collecting, going out and collecting, and having my friend who is my son's age, so he's in his late 50s, 40s, called me and said, Dave, you want to go collecting? I said, I'll go with you, but I don't need any more trees. And so now I've got a couple of trees in the yard that he has collected and says, well, I want you to have these. You were with me. So there's real value and realistic connection in getting excited about this adventure of bonsai. It's very social, culture appropriate.
The Surgeon General this past year, someone brought this to my attention because of what I teach. I work in special education and I teach social skills to kids who are on the autism spectrum, who don't get social cues and social skills, and so we directly teach that to them as a class, right? And the Surgeon General put out a report this year about the lack of social connectedness in our society, and of course blaming social media and technology and things like that. And the one thing that continues to give me hope with social connectedness is this, bonsai. And whether it's bonsai or hot rod cars that you have in common with someone else, I think the social connectedness that you and I even shared today, medicine.
We're sitting here together, which is proof positive to me.
For 2-3 hours.
Yeah. The fact that I had this Jack come over here, don't even know the man.
Yeah.
And he literally has to pause because he's so social. And he's doing this intimate moment with me.
Yeah.
That has been facilitated by
this.
Yes. Yeah, so there is something unique at the Y.
Yeah.
When I'm sitting in the sauna and somebody says, you're that bonsai guy?
Well, thank you so very much. What an amazing few hours up there in Duluth with Dave Severson. Thanks to Dave again for his time and his passion and his willingness to share, so we can all pause a moment and see some amazing trees. Can't thank him enough. Can't wait to go back, especially in the fall. I don't know if I can get there this year, but I can't wait to hang out with Dave again and talk about some trees. And the Minnesota Bonsai Society auction is just around the corner, and Dave just might have a tree or two in that auction. Maybe someone that I know could put a bid on one of those trees. We'll have to see in just a little bit. Hey, that's going to do it for this show. The Passive Solar Green Frame is still standing, and we've got some updates around the corner. People have been chomping at the bit trying to get an update. It's coming. Did I dig or did I not? Hey, take care of you. Take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you on the next one.